we got some rather sad news for the NBA, more sad news for the NBA. It doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of good news today. But former Los Angeles Lakers player and LA Clippers executive Elgin Baylor has passed away at the age of 86. Right now, there's not really a cause of death, but there has been a statement brought out, I believe, by his wife. Yeah, by his wife. She said, and I quote, Elgin was the love of my life and my best friend. And like everyone else, I was in awe of his immense courage, dignity, and the time he gave to all fans. At this time, we ask that I and our family be allowed to mourn his passing in privacy. Just a little bit of history on Elgin Baylor. He is one out of four players in NBA history to average double digit 25 points and 10 rebounds throughout the course of his career. So his career average is 27.4 points per game and 13 and a half rebounds, which if you ask me, Nate, in today's NBA, that'd be an MVP season. No doubt about it. The Lakers, obviously, they moved to Minneapolis. The Lakers who moved from Minneapolis to Los Angeles in 1960. During that time, Baylor made 8 NBA final appearances, but never won a title. He lost to the Boston Celtics in 7 games on 3 different occasions, which is unfortunate for Elgin Baylor, but obviously, it helps the Boston Celtics, they're the Boston Celtics. Yeah, and this was a statement by, I want to say the Lakers. I want to say this is a statement by the Lakers, and I quote, Elgin was the superstar of his era. His many accolades speak to that. Lakers owner Jenny Buss said this. Okay. He was one of the few Lakers players whose career spanned from Minneapolis to Los Angeles, but more importantly, he was a man of great integrity, even serving his country at a U.S. Army reservist, often playing for the Lakers only during the weekend pass. He is one of all-time Laker greats with his number 22 retired in the rafters and his statue standing guard in front of the Staples Center. He will always be a part of the Lakers legacy. On behalf of the entire Lakers family, I'd like to send my thoughts, prayers, and condolences to Elaine and the Baylor family. So you know what, Nate? Before I pass on to you, I just wanted to say the source for this was ESPN. But I'm passing on. Before I pass on to you, I also want to take a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, Nate. Your thoughts on Elgin Baylor passing away?
First of all, may Elgin Baylor rest in peace. Condolences to his family, his wife more specifically, um, his family in general, the Clippers and the Lakers. Um, Obviously he helped out the Clippers in making themselves a pretty neat team, especially these last couple of years. The Clippers have been exceeding expectations. And I know as an executive, I don't necessarily know what rank of executive he was for the Clippers, but
He was
whatever
a
rank.
uh, he was a long tenured general manager.
Oh, okay. So obviously he's contributed to the Clippers in a way. So obviously he's going to be more. He's going to be more about the NBA in general. This is the guy that you don't really hear a lot about. My dad talks about him a lot because obviously he watched Elgin Baylor play a lot in the '60s against the Celtics. My dad grew up in that era. He was a young kid, but he still at the time, but he still remembered him. Obviously he dropped 61 points against the Celtics in a playoff game. I think it was in 1962. Yeah, it was in '62. My dad remembers a lot about this guy. So to hear about a guy that you hear very often, but at his time was one of the biggest stars in the game, it's very sad to hear. He was obviously a legend for the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the Lakers' all-time greats. But he's one of those greats, like I said, just like how nobody talks about him a lot no more. He's one of those forgotten Lakers greats, and that's very unfortunate. But with that being said, I am sending my condolences to the Baylor family, the Lakers, and the Clippers, and may Elgin Baylor rest in peace.
Yeah, I'll take it from there. First of all, may Elgin Baylor rest in peace and condolences to his family. Let me tell you something. Now, I think Elgin Baylor is one of the greatest NBA players to ever play the game, and I put him at top 15 easily. And
Yeah,
and here's the thing: this is a guy that's very forgotten in the NBA. Obviously, when we talk about great Lakers, we talk about like Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar comes up in that topic. Jerry West, the logo, he sometimes comes up, but Elgin Baylor is like the fifth or sixth guy to come up, and it's absolutely weird because I believe because Elgin Baylor might have at one point been one of the most important Lakers. Now, obviously, he never won an NBA title, which is very unfortunate. But man, 8 final appearances it's not something that you should be looking down on. There are a lot of players who barely make it to one. So for him to make it to 8 final appearances, it is a very big accomplishment. And think about it this way: back in the '60s, you're going up against a guy named, I don't know, his name is Bill Russell. So to be honest with you, nobody's really getting a lot out of that. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's really beating Bill Russell around that time. Like not even Will Chamberlain could. But Elgin Baylor, I mean, very, very underrated player. I mean, I just read you the stat. He's one of 4 players in NBA history to average 25 points and 10 rebounds throughout the course of his career, 27.4 points per game and 13.5 rebounds per game. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous for career stats. I believe he's one of the most underrated players in NBA history, without a doubt. I think if you were to create like a lineup, like of an underrated lineup that can win a championship, I think Elgin Baylor deserves to be in that conversation. And I think honestly, I want to say Elgin Baylor is a top 15 NBA player of all time. Um, yeah, I mean, this is obviously a huge loss to the Los Angeles Lakers. Like you said, they have his statue up in front of the Staples Center. Obviously, same thing to the Los Angeles Clippers due to the executive role that he had there, or that he had. Yeah, that he had, and obviously now he doesn't have that no more. But I mean, to be honest with you, Nate, this is a pretty sad day for the NBA, and I mean, I hope that the NBA kind of spreads his legacy around through like social media or on TV, so that younger kids like us can actually see how good Elgin Baylor really was. Because kids like us who are like 20 years old, and especially kids who are even younger than us, we really don't understand how good Elgin Baylor was. We don't understand how good Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was, how good I want to say Magic Johnson was. Like we talk about him as like the number one point guard, but we don't talk about how good he really is. Will Chamberlain. We don't talk about Bill Russell. All these guys, Jerry West, Robert Ory. We don't understand how good these guys really were because we never got to live through it. And go 20, 30 years down the line, people are not going to understand how good LeBron James was. Why? Because they didn't live through that time, so they couldn't tell you. So I mean, I want the NBA to kind of like spread around Elgin Baylor's legacy so people can really understand how great this player was because he was an absolutely amazing player, absolutely amazing. So with that being said, Nate, I wish him I may he rest in peace, and I wish his family absolutely the best of luck and condolences to them.